And welcome back to our studio for the second part of Talking Europe. Today I'm glad to bring you an exclusive interview with one of the key architects of Europe's common currency, a man who knows better than anyone else what should be done to fix the euro, Jean-Claude Trichet, the former president of the European Central Bank. Mr. Trichet, thank you very much for being with us on Talking Europe.
It's a pleasure.
Your successor, Mario Draghi, announced an unlimited bond-buying program 1 month ago. Was this the big gun that the markets had been waiting for?
I think it is an important, very important, of course, decision of the Governing Council of the ECB. Not the first time the ECB had decided, as you know, to purchase treasuries, always with the idea, and it was made very clear, crystal clear, if I may, by Mario Draghi, that it was necessary to transmit the monetary policy decisions in the various economies in Europe. Of course, this is the, I would say, main goal. The main goal is for the central bank to be able to transmit its monetary policy. Of course, the central bank cannot substitute to governments, both the governments that are in difficulty and governments that are member of the euro area. So it was very clearly said that that intervention was depending on the functioning of the help by the governments themselves and on the conditionality by the government themselves, with the help, of course, of the Commission. So this is something which I trust is important. Again, it's not new in that sense that we had done that already. We had done that also on the basis of commitment of governments. And one of the problems is that some commitments of the governments are very long to materialize, or even do not materialize at all in some cases. So what is extremely important now, it's clear, absolutely clear, for government to honor their commitments, to do what has been said, what they said they would do, and that would, of course...
Are you confident that this will happen? Because, as you said, the ECB is playing its part of the game. Now you want the governments to commit to structural reforms. What guarantees do you have that this will take place?
Again, we are living, very fortunately, in a democratic world. We have 17 democracies, exemplary democracies, I would say, with executive branches and parliament. And I expect, of course, our democracies to proceed and honor what their commitment, honor what they have decided to do. I am confident, because I have always observed that even if it is from time to time too slow, too hesitant, not sufficiently rapid and comprehensive, nevertheless, they honor their signature. So I am confident. But one has to know every partner has to play its part, and that is the language of the ECB since it's setting up, and it's very clearly the language of the ECB today by the voice of his president.
Mr. Draghi's plan was publicly criticized by a very important man, Jens Weidmann, the governor of the Bundesbank, Germany's national bank. He said this plan is bad because, in substance, printing unlimited amount of money from nothing will lead to disasters. Could he be right?
I would say two things. First, the decision, to my knowledge, was taken by a very large majority of the Governing Council of the ECB. The treaty says that decisions are taken by a majority. I understand it was an overwhelming majority. In Europe, we had considered at the very beginning that it was too important for a central bank which was issuing the currency for 17 now countries. It was very important to speak with one voice. I think it was a good decision. I think it was a good decision. Now we see that de facto we do not speak with one voice. But it is something which is usual in the UK, in the US, and in Japan. I regret that we are not sticking to what had been decided at the very beginning, not with my presidency, with the presidency of Wim Duisenberg. But it is a de facto situation. And I would say, of course, a number of decisions are taken after, due meditation on what are the pros and the cons, what are the positives and the negatives. And you always decide taking all into account. So it's good, in any case, that the Governing Council reflects very, very deeply.
Jean-Claude Trichet, all eyes are of course on Spain, with Prime Minister Mariano Rajoy still reluctant to request a multi-billion bailout for his economy. Experts say it should be a matter of days, maybe weeks, but there is a sense that this procrastination, this undecisiveness is making matters worse.
As I said, the advice the ECB has given constantly to governments was take good decisions, and once it is done, implement them as rapidly, comprehensively, swiftly as possible.
But we're wasting time here, aren't we?
This is what is called by the situation. And again, the situation is not only a demanding situation in Europe. It's a demanding situation in all advanced economy. It's a demanding situation in the US. We are in Japan. We are experiencing the worst crisis of the advanced economy since World War II. There is no doubt on that. And again, my advice is exactly the same as the advice we were giving in the previous years. Implement swiftly, rapidly, comprehensively what you have decided. You can draw the conclusion. So
the conclusion would be that Mr. Rajoy shouldn't be wasting too much time.
Again, I don't want to substitute. As I said, the central bank should never substitute to a government. So it's up to them, of course, to take the decision.
Let's talk about Greece. This week, the Greek government announced that its debt should reach 180% of GDP next year. With its economy expected to shrink by 3.8%, a sixth year of recession. When you look at the fundamentals, when you look at the figures, it looks to me that Greece can't stay in the euro.
I wouldn't say that. I certainly wouldn't say that. As you know, it is not at all what is the intention, to my knowledge, of the government, not the intention of the people, because the question was asked to the people in the occasion of the last elections, and certainly not the orientation or decisions of the other countries member of the euro area. The situation is difficult. But the situation was made very, very difficult because we had in the framework two things, particularly before the crisis, that were very, very bad. One was no real implementation of the Stability and Growth Pact. And my first message for the European Parliament myself in 2003 was to say the Stability and Growth Pact is the quid pro quo for the fact that we do not have a fiscal federation, a political federation, full-fledged political federation. So, but unfortunately, a lot of countries, including the big countries, decided at the time that they would dismantle the Stability and Growth Pact. They did not really succeed, but they weakened formidably the spirit of the pact. And the second thing, which was lacking, was the follow-up, the monitoring of the competitiveness of the countries, their unit labor cost, their competitive indicators, and of course their imbalances, external imbalances in particular. Greece engaged in an enormous increase of revenue, costs, and national prices. Of course, every nominal, indicator was going up and up and up, and they were losing competitiveness in comparison with the average of the euro area. And this has to be corrected.
But how can you correct it? 180% of debt next year.
Of course, it is painful. I don't confirm the figures. I had not looked at it, and I don't want to confirm any figure. As you know, big help has been asked already to the private sector, and it demonstrates that Greece was clearly saying, I will adjust this adjustment, I engage in it, but it's something which is particularly difficult. I will not say anything more than that, but when you have behaved improperly in the past, and of course, it's never the fault of the people, but it's the fault of the full body of the society and of the functioning of the society, then you have to pay a price for that. Those who behaved properly before the crisis are marvelously resilient in the crisis. So you can see the countries that have continued to create jobs since the crisis started in 2007, 2008. And it's the case, for instance, in Germany, because Germany had a big problem with the reunification and worked a lot on its own soundness, if I may. The same for Sweden, the same for Canada. Canada is very close to the US. They should have been hit dramatically by the US crisis when it erupted in 2008. They had done a very, very good job in, regaining credibility, in regaining a very sound budget and macro policies. They have resisted admirably well. So soundness, good management is rewarded. And we have the proof under our eyes. But it doesn't mean that it is not difficult to correct when you have to correct.
Now, Jean-Claude Trichet, this program is produced in partnership with the Robert Schuman Foundation. Its president, Jean-Dominique Giuliani, had a question for you. So let's listen to him.
Mr. President, as a chairman of the European Central Bank, you told the chief of state that they have to do their own job nationally before asking for a more active ECB. Your successor did the same, and in fact it has acted on this line to try to help Spain and Italy in big difficulties. Many voices in France are asking for a more active ECB. What could be the structural reform that we need in France to go toward a more active and proactive ECB at the European level?
What structural reform does France need? I guess there's a hidden message here. Is France dragging its feet when it comes to reforms, and has France become a liability for the ECB in that sense?
No, there is something which I will say immediately, of course. The ECB does what the treaty calls upon it, and that is ensuring stability, price stability as a precondition for sustainable job creation, sustainable growth, and also because our fellow citizens asked us to deliver that. Of course, price stability means no inflation over and above what is the definition of price stability, and of course no deflation either. And it is exactly what has been done since the setting up of the euro. The results in this domain of price stability are remarkable, even if our people all over Europe are asking us to stick to this very, very important stability, which is the key for many, many other very important goals. But that being said, I would say for France, of course, as well as for the euro area as a whole, structural reforms are of the essence. Structural reforms are of the essence because they would permit to elevate the growth potential of the euro area as a whole. That growth potential is too small. In comparison with the emerging countries, that goes without saying, we are miserable in terms of growth and therefore in terms of prosperity and job creation. And I have to say also that, of course, in comparison with the best advanced economy, we are also very, very bad. So we should go in the direction in each country, and of course in this country in particular, towards the souplesse, the flexibility, which is called to make the economy more reactive, more productive, and creating more jobs. That is true for all. I regret very much that the Lisbon agenda, which was the first 10 years, did not work well, and we have to concentrate on the 2020, which is the second, I would say, great endeavor. But I don't hear too much speaking of these.
Talking about flexibility here in France, leading officials within the Socialist Party are already questioning the 3% deficit for next year, saying this will prevent France from relaunching its economy. Are you worried to hear this?
I would say this is the clear decision of the government. It has been absolutely clearly confirmed by the government and by the Minister of Finance, and it seems to me that it is exactly the right orientation in a period which is very demanding, where you can see clearly that big deficits are a threat for creditworthiness, a threat for the credibility of the economy as a whole, and for confidence. And I would say confidence is the key for everything. Confidence of the household, confidence of the entrepreneurs, and confidence of the savers, of course, because without their confidence, it doesn't work. It wouldn't work well. And I have also to say that, to my knowledge, the last polls which were made in France suggested that the people was backing this orientation, which is good.
How can you explain to the Spanish people? Spain has 54% of youth unemployment. How can you explain to this lost generation that austerity, further cuts, will create growth and jobs? Because that's not what they're seeing.
I mean, when I look at Spain, of course, we are speaking of big economies. If there are enormous differences between youth unemployment and adult unemployment, it's very much of your own making. I'm sorry to say that. But, you know, there are structural reforms that would permit to have not necessarily a very brilliant situation, but at least not to create that difference, enormous difference between the youth, the young people and the adults. But on the other hand, let's look at how it functions in economy. You have earnings in the economy and you have spendings, if I may, in the economy, all together. And the external accounts are telling you whether you earn more or less than you spend. And when I looked at the, I would say, country X, say Spain, but a number of others, 5 years ago, they had an enormous current account deficit, an enormous difference between what they were earning and what they were spending. And what Spain is doing now is to go back to a balanced situation. And they did a lot of hard work. And so I think we should not underestimate the hard work which is being done. But of course, it's not easy. It's painful. It's been always painful. The best situation is when you protect your balance between earning and spending, then you don't have to correct, you don't have to adjust, and you don't have to have the painful experiment.
Jean-Claude Trichet, former president of the European Central Bank, thank you very much for talking to us.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for watching this edition of Talking Europe on France 24. Please stay with us for more news.